Marv, first of all, thanks for joining us, and we appreciate you sharing your story.
Oh, it's very, very interesting. I really enjoyed it.
You were 12 years old at the time of Pearl Harbor, is that
Right.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
What do you remember of that time?
I heard about it during the day, and that night FDR was going to come on and give us one of his fireside messages, and he did. And I can still remember him talking. It was, I get choked up off easy. But it was, I remember it real plainly. I can't remember what he said or anything like that. But I can remember that it just really was touching.
Who was there with you?
My dad, my mom, and my little brother.
How old was your little brother?
He was 2.5 years younger than I was. He's about 9, I would say, at the time. But I was, like a lot of kids at that time, was scared, kind of scared. But we were far enough away from it that we pretty much knew that we were safe. But it was still kind of a scary time.
How long did it take for everyday life to change for you and your family and for your classmates and things like that? Was it something that happened right away, or was it something that kind of took a while?
Well, of course, the German war had been going on for some time at that time. So I remember, about that. It seemed like every day, you heard the news and you heard about, so many more soldiers being killed and so many wounded and stuff like that. But it wasn't like today. Today you have instant news. At that time, we had news from the radio, which wasn't too bad, but it was still a lot different than today. But I remember that. But when the Pearl Harbor came, that was just something that really struck me. And then, of course, with the president's speech, and stuff like that. That's the thing I remember mostly.
Did you know anybody who was there?
Oh, we all knew soldiers and sailors and stuff like that, and neighbors, yeah. But I was too young to go to the service at that time. But I remember my wife told me I should say that I was in during the Korean War, and I went to Germany during that time in the Army of Occupation. And I remember ruined towns just in shambles. You had in 1952 to 54. And then we went back to Germany in 1986, and all these ruined towns were all back beautiful cities again. And the Germans had been short of help after the war. That's why it took so long to start getting, and all the manpower was dead or gone, and so they didn't have help to rebuild those towns. So they brought people in from Turkey, and the Turks helped to build the towns a lot, and then they stayed there, of course. But that's the same way here. There was a shortage of manpower, so that's why the women went out and did so many things. The women did a tremendous amount of work during the Second World War.
One of the comments I've heard from a lot of people, young, old, and in between from that era, was how struck they were by how together the nation was at that time.
It was. I remember. I can remember slogans like "Nip the Japs." I can't remember what they all were now, but everybody was together. Everybody. All the stuff on the radio was positive at the time, beat the Japs, beat the Nazis, and stuff like that. The country was really, today in Iraq and stuff, you hear pros and cons and this and that and stuff on it. Oh, at that time, it was pretty much all positive until the war was over, because, well, it was a big war. It was serious.
How did life change at home once the America was in the war, full steam?
Well, I remember, like Linus was saying out there, I remember buying war stamps, and finally got enough money to where I had enough money for a war bond, $25 war bond, and that was
it's a lot of money.
$18 or something like that, I think it was, and they, I think, were returned in 10 years or 20, I can't remember what. Anyway, I finally cashed mine out about 4 or 5 years ago, $90-some. I figured No need of.
But they honored it. They honored.
Yes. Oh, they absolutely did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I can remember he had ration books. You know, like I say, only 12. You don't remember a lot of things, you know. But in some of the stuff, that's just what was happening. But I always remember that speech
Mm-hmm.
with FDR. I remember just something. That was a very important time in my life. Very, very important second, or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember when the war ended? Or first of all,
yeah.
in Germany,
Yeah.
what was that day like?
Can't really remember. I know we were happy.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, when Japan surrendered, when the atomic bombs were dropped and stuff like that, holy God, that's really something, you know. And put it into the war, and everybody's happy for that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so.
How long was it until? I know it isn't right to say things returned to normal, because what is normal? But how long was it until a lot of those young men? Are you in Pierre at the time, or you in Hayes at the time?
I was still at Hayes.
Still
I was
at
a
Hayes.
rancher out at Hayes, yeah.
When was it when things started to kind of get a feel back of normalcy, or did it ever?
Oh, I'm sure it did, but there was some. I remember some of the neighbor boys coming home from the service. I remember there's a couple of them that didn't too, and I knew them or knew their families and stuff, you know. But little by little, it came back.
Mm-hmm.
It took time, I'm sure of that. And of course, not having a brother or a cousin or anything like that around in the war itself, I probably wasn't touched as much by that as families that had them. But like I say, there was several neighbor boys who came back out of the service.
They talk about things at all when they came back?
Not an awful lot, no. I don't think it's just like we were just talking about Dave Moore. You
Mm-hmm.
just had him in here. What a story he has to tell. I've known Dave for 40 years. I was in the insurance business, and I visit with Dave and Vivian when I go down there. I never knew anything about this. He's got a real story to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Mine is a very simple little thing about President telling about Pearl Harbor, but you know, a person could talk forever about these things. There was a lot of it was a serious time in the history of the United States. You know, if we wouldn't have stopped the Nazis and stopped the Japanese, we wouldn't have been sitting here talking today. Just that serious.
Was there a time that you remember, again, you're 12 years old when this happens, was there a time when you started to think about what if we didn't win?
Oh, I suppose, but I can't remember too much. That's a long while ago. I'm 77 years old. Memory's not so good sometimes.
Indeed.
Yeah, but that's about my story.
Very good. Thank you. I appreciate you sharing it with us.
Well, I appreciate what you're doing here. This brings back memories of